Welcome to the Blake and Krista show. I am Krista.
And I'm Blake.
And today's topic is going deep into the prison system.
Oh.
So this is a topic that kind of goes in a couple of different directions emotionally, I feel like. I asked Blake if he was up for the challenge today or the topic today. One, because it was actually a big part of his life. It's intriguing from someone like me who never went through prison. I don't think I hardly ever got in trouble at home in general. And for someone who won't go there to really understand what it's like.
Yes. So it's a tell-all.
So this is a tell-all.
A tell-all Friday.
Tell-all. When Blake and I reconnected 5 years ago, you'll have to remember that I was able to see Blake's kind of transformation once he got out of prison, so I could see that there was something different in him, but you never know. You're like, all right. In my head, I was thinking, all right, is this guy, Googling Bible verses and, posting them? I didn't know the depth of your, what's a good Bible verse for today? And do it.
Oh, gosh.
Okay, so I didn't,
So you thought it was completely fake?
Well, not necessarily fake. I just...
Jailhouse religion?
Yeah, jailhouse religion and, and...
Because you knew how I used to be.
Yeah.
I even messaged you a few times while I was in prison with some really weird stuff.
So,
and then I come out talking about Jesus. So, yeah.
Exactly. And we're going to go into that question right there. How could you message me from prison? But I'll ask you that in just a second.
The cell phone I was holding.
Yeah, but how do you get a cell phone, right? So these are, but not yet. Not yet.
Tell all.
So if you are just joining, happened across this video or this podcast, Blake was in prison a total of 8 years, jail and prison, a total of 8 years of his life from the age of
Essentially 22. Well, I got arrested for the first time at 16.
Okay.
Then I got arrested again at 19.
Yeah.
So but 22. Went to prison. I went to prison for the first time. I think I was 22, or in the latter part of my 21, and then I got released. The last time I was 29, 30.
29. So
29 years old.
So I was around when we were high school sweethearts. I was around probably for the first or second jailhouse stay.
Yeah, your mom actually.
Yeah.
Well, I got a DUI when I was 16.
Okay.
And so that's kind of like a slap on the wrist for a minor. My parents were on the scene.
Yeah.
They followed me to the jail. I think the cops actually let me ride with my parents under arrest to the jail. And then, so that's nothing. You go through the juvenile system. But I got arrested for the big time. The first time was when I got arrested for marijuana possession with intent to distribute. Mm-hmm. And that's when your mom came in.
Yeah.
So bonded me out.
That first day, so we were high school sweethearts. So going back to saying I was around for, I guess, the first two, real jailhouse experiences. And then from there, I recognized our life was going in different directions, and we pretty much stopped talking after that. And then reconnected.
You left me high and dry.
Reconnected, 13.
So let's just put that out there and be honest.
Okay, we all know, and anyone listening here knows I probably did all I could to get you to wisen up. So recognized our life was going in different directions. So we pretty much stopped talking and then reconnected 13 years later. So in between that time, a lot of experience in jail and in prison. So when we reconnected.
Yeah, well, that gave me all the time I needed to learn my Bible verses.
Yeah.
Like you were just talking about. I had 13 years, guys, to conjure up this act.
Yeah, so that you can win me
back. How I was going to win her back. We were high school sweethearts, and we didn't see each other for 13 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in all that time, I was in and out of prison. You were doing beauty pageants, reality TV shows.
Yeah. College.
You were living the life,
just
and
normal.
I was wasting away.
Yeah. So 13 years after, really, your whole new life, my whole new life, we reconnected, and I was living with one of my best friends at the time, and we literally would sit Blake down and just say, "Okay, we got a lot of questions for you about jail or prison."
Yes.
We had also
Watched The Orange is the New Black. Is that what it was called?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were into watching Orange is the New Black. And so if you've ever watched
And
that.
Shawshank Redemption.
If you've ever watched that, then you know that there's a lot of Hollywood to it all. So here go our typical questions that we ask.
So just candid. If we have to go back in post-production and edit some stuff out, it's not for children. We are Christians, so I'm not gonna talk about really bad stuff.
Yeah, but these are a lot of questions that we all probably want to know, and I think the craziest part of these questions for Blake as he answers is remember that he was highly addicted to drugs, alcohol, the life that he was living. So it wasn't him. So to imagine him as the sober person that I knew, the person before the drugs, going through these experiences is really tough to imagine. So when he tells the stories that hopefully he can tell again, through these questions, it always takes me back to that. So some parts of this, it might be emotional for me. I know it is for anytime his mom thinks about it, just him experiencing it. So I think my first question or topic that I want you to kind of dig into is when you knew you were going to stay for a longer period of time. What was the first longer period of time stay? 3 months?
Well, I did a month in the county jail.
Okay.
The first time. I violated probation on that possession charge.
Yeah.
Did a month in the county jail, got out, reinstated probation, did 2 months after I violated again. They reinstated probation.
Okay.
Then I did 3 months. No, I did 1 month, 2 months, and then they said, you know what, you're just not going to get right on this case. You're not going to do probation, so we're going to send you to prison for the remainder of your sentence.
Or that's how long?
That was for 15 months.
Okay. So even going back to maybe the 3-month stay, the 2-month stay, yeah. Okay. It's kind of hard to follow here, but okay, 2 months. That's 60 days. That's a lot of time. Were you scared? Did you in your heart of hearts, were you afraid of anything? Or what? Yeah.
There were times when I knew in the county jails and even in prisons that I had probably bitten off more than I could chew with certain situations. But I was never living in fear in there. I've always been a big guy, 6'4", 6'3", 6'4", around 200 pounds, always an athlete. So I was athletic, big build. Yeah. There was fighting and stuff like that wasn't an issue. I had been in hundreds of fights in high school. Yeah. So the big thing about the county jail, which Hollywood portrays in a lot of these reality shows, they always show the fighting and the argument. It's a lot of dead time. If you have 24 hours in a day and you're out of your cell, if it's not on lockdown, you're out of your cell for, let's say, 8 hours of the day. It's just a lot of card playing, walking around, TV time, talking to friends or cellmates. The fights and stuff that you see in Hollywood or on reality TV shows, those are few and far between. So, no, never scared. Never, if I decided to get into something, it was because I'd made the choice. So, yeah.
Did you go
now, some people might be. I know I don't want to interrupt you, but I've seen guys come in there, and the moment they come down the hallway, they have a tough time. It's because of their personality. Yeah. If they're naturally introverts, and guys are kind of scoping that out. If they're naturally, I don't want to say weaker, but easily influenced, smaller guys or whatever, they have a harder time. It's all about how they first see you when you walk down the hallway.
When did you get in your first fight?
In the jail? Mm-hmm. Oh, gosh, I don't even remember.
Was it your first day, second day?
No. It was probably my first time, in there. But it wasn't early on, probably a month or two into it. And it was probably over something stupid to where I lost, what? I lost my piece of chicken in a card game. And I said, you're not getting my chicken. We'll fight for it. The guy was probably but you lost it in a bet. I was probably whatever.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So-
You're not just walking around there having to defend yourself because somebody wants to fight you.
Okay.
It's always you got into something. You were looking for trouble.
Yeah. Speaking of food, so did you just? What do you mean you lost your piece of chicken? You just had a piece of chicken hanging out to be able to put up for the card game, or you just knew chicken night was
chicken
coming.
day, Tuesdays and.
Okay. What's the food like?
Oh gosh, awful. It is awful.
Was it better like in prison?
It's canned vegetables. They put a little spoon of salt on your tray, but most of the time, the juice from the vegetables gotten over there in your salt, so you can't really use wet salt. Squash. I'm seeing the squash right now.
Okay.
Green beans.
What the guys getting the most excited about?
Oh gosh, chicken.
Chicken day
and fish. Friday's fish day.
Oh gosh, I can
fish,
imagine
and
fish.
it's just some old white perch. It's just awful, but we would get excited about it. So the food is very, very bland. Mm-hmm. If it's hot, naturally whatever's supposed to be hot is cold when you get it, and whatever's naturally supposed to be cold, like potato salad, it's hot when you get it. So the food is awful. That's why store call is really big.
Yeah, what store call? Yeah, you have like
commissary.
Canteen, right? Or
canteen, commissary. Yeah, okay. You can order. That's where you order your honey buns, and your candy bars, your chips, your pickles.
Yeah, where do you get this money from to buy that?
Oh, my mom, or somebody I was lying to.
So people can put money on this
your books.
On your books.
Yeah, and then you buy store with it.
And then you can buy store.
Hygiene, coffee, store. So guys who had store money, they ate better.
Okay.
Except chicken and fish day.
So didn't you have some type of like mixture or something that you called where you, like if you get a packet of something else, you put hot water in it, and what's that?
It's called a Hot Pocket or a burrito. Ramen noodles with chips, summer sausages, cheese squeeze, tuna packets. You mix all that in there and let it sit for like 30 minutes, and it heats up. And you just break out the chips, the Doritos, and it's like a big dip. It's called a burrito.
So you take that back to your room, and then you heat.
Yeah, so you get a trash bag, an extra trash bag from the guards, and you mix all those foods together. And you put hot water on it.
Oh my.
And then you smooth it out on your bed, and you put your mat on top of it and let it incubate. And then you peel it back. Oh, it's a big day. Eating a big burrito with a bunch of friends, a bunch of cellmates. So in Alabama, it's called a burrito. In Georgia, it's called a pocket. See, I did time in both of those states.
Okay.
So I was fluent.
Is Georgia prisons better than?
I only did county jail time in Georgia, and it was worse.
Okay.
It was worse.
Georgia. Shout out to Alabama.
Alabama, if you're going to do time in prison, go to Alabama. Don't go to Georgia.
Oh, goodness. What would you say was the hardest part for you? Now, this is all, let's say, before salvation, before. Yeah. So as a reminder, Blake met the Lord a year and a half before, the end of.
Roughly 19 months.
Yeah, 19 months. So this entire time in jail, prison, was not saved. So what would you say the hardest? Was there a hard time you remember the most, or?
The time. There's a saying amongst like the prisoners. Well, there used to be, when I was in there, a man can do 1,000 years in jail or prison if every day was different, but every day is the same. So it's the time. Every day is the same. There's repetition. That's what it's about. You're being woke up at 4:00. Breakfast is at 4:30. At 6:00 is shift change. Your bed needs to be made. You need to be up, teeth brushed, face washed by 6:15. There's a lieutenant coming through to check your bed. It's got to be 6-inch collar like the Marines. Then you're going outside from roughly 7 to 11. Mandatory yard call. Get outside the dorm. And then lunch is served around 12. Then you're back locked down from 12 to 4. Dinner is served at 4. Yard call again at roughly 6 to lights out, and it's like that every day. The TV shows are the same. Everybody's in the same uniform.
How did you do that? Like, how did you mentally? I mean, did you have moments where you just like lose it?
Well, it's the reason some guys lose it in there. Some guys come home worse than when they went in there, and it's not because of drugs or some trauma they experienced. They're just mental capacity. They just lose it. Yeah. I watched guys do a substantial amount of time, and they change. Their mental status changed.
Because the brain's not being fed, like.
Well, yeah, you're not being educated. It's a lot of trauma. You see a lot of stuff that you don't want to see. And so every day just wears on you.
Yeah.
It's the time that gets you.
Yeah.
You know, some guys have it worse than others, but for me personally, you asked what was the hardest, and it was every day doing the time.
So when you go back into the prisons, now you go for, for the prison ministry side. So each month you go back to Easterling. Every week you go into the Russell County Jail, and you're there to, give a word to those that want to come and hear from any ministers that come in. Do you take yourself back to those moments and then try to? The mental to me is just the bit. I mean, that seems to be, if it were me, that's what I can imagine is the hardest part. And now knowing you and how you are, even in the world where you can go and do whatever, you can't sit in this house longer than 5 minutes before going crazy. So, when you go into the jails and the prisons now, what do you, what's your biggest, I don't know, just prayer and hope? And
the biggest thing is that they would have a mind transformation, like the Bible says, 2 Corinthians 5:17. That renewing of the mind transformation. That's what it took for me. I had this certain mindset while I was in prison before Jesus, and then a totally new mindset after Jesus. The mindset before that I know they're living in is, I think statistics say 89%. So let's say 90% of all the men that are in prison have been there before. It's not their first time. And so they're lifers, they're life criminals. And their mindset is what mine used to be. Is this, I'm just going to do this stint. I'm going to do this 5 years, 10 years, 6 months, whatever it is. And then I'm going to get out and hopefully I can do better.
Yeah.
They say it so much that they got all these aspirations and different things they're going to do. I'm going to get a job. I got this new girlfriend or whatever. Things are going to be different this time. But it never really is because there's never a mind renewal.
Yeah.
And so when I go in there now, obviously I cut right through the quick with them because they know I've been there before. Yeah. Most of them I've done time with. Yeah. When I go into the prison and preach, I just give them my AIS number, and then that kind of makes them perk up.
What do you say?
Right before I start preaching, I say, hey, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Blake, AIS number 241909, and they have an AIS number, which is your Alabama inmate serial number or whatever. But it's the mind transformation. I try to preach to them, Jesus is literally wanting to take your mind and renew it.
Yeah.
Because when I got saved in prison, the thoughts that I had after meeting the Lord were no longer I didn't have any of those old thoughts. I couldn't watch the same TV shows. I couldn't listen to the same music. I couldn't engage in the same conversations. I couldn't do gang activities. I couldn't, I had talked on the cell phone and been on Facebook through my cell phone for 3 or 4 years. I couldn't even look at a cell phone without getting nauseous after I got saved because it was just a part of, the breaking of the rules.
Yeah. So
couldn't smoke a cigarette, none of that.
Before we get into that after, take us back to that mindset that you're talking about, the before. So it's a renewing of your mind that the Holy Spirit, just completely transformed you. But I think it for people to really understand how rough you were. I call you how crazy you were, how just you mentioned it many times we tell your testimony, you had no care for anyone, anything that they cared about that.
Complete manipulation.
Yeah.
There was moments where I had these reality checks, I guess I could say, especially with my mom, because she was the only one that was really pouring in emotionally, spiritually, and financially to me. So there was moments I thought, man, my mom's really going through it, you know. But you're not saved. You're not living with any kind of self-control or humility. So mine was complete manipulation and finesse. Yeah. And I hated my life to where it had become from being, somebody who had my life before me, baseball, scholarship in college, pro scouts, sitting in the dugouts with me before I got arrested. So I would look back at those times and then I would look at myself now. I would look at the whole scope, from the tattoos on my knuckles to the girls that I was dating. To the friends, I was on Facebook in prison, so I would look at some of our old mutual friends and see where they were in life. Just graduated college, just got married, just had their first child. I would see their house, their homes in pictures. I would see the boats that they're riding on. I'd see their family vacations. And then I would look around in my life, and I'm wasting away in this cesspool of just complete and utter failure. Yeah. I mean, we have to have prisons but nobody knows what to do with the people who break the law, from grandma's house to the president's office. We really don't know what to do, so put them in prison.
Yeah.
And so I just hated life.
Right.
I literally hated life. And so that fueled me to get more higher and higher and higher, to suppress my reality. And then I just hated, I had no respect for anything.
Yeah.
Like nothing.
When you told us that time that you did more drugs in prison than you did on the streets, my mind was blown. Like one, how can you do that? Like what? But then, you said you just like committed yourself to that life, and then the gangs and the.
Well, in prison,
how did you do more drugs in prison than you did outside? So
in prison, I actually became a drug dealer in prison. When out here, I was always just, I worked little dead end jobs to maintain an addiction. And we would sell some dope here and there, but in there, I became a drug dealer. Me and my good buddy who's still locked up in there, we had a certain guard that would bring us whatever we wanted, and we paid him by the month. Mm-hmm. How we did that was Green Dot Visa prepaid cards. Let's say you were my girlfriend at the time, mm-hmm. which you weren't. You were living the best life, doing your thing. We would get a girl or even a friend, a homeboy, to go to Walmart and get one of the prepaid Visa cards.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is load money onto that.
Yeah.
And so that guard would bring us in money. Mm-hmm. Bring us in drugs, and then we would sell those drugs in the prison.
Yeah.
And guys would pay with the sack of drugs with a prepaid Visa card that they got from their family, and all I needed was the 16 digits.
This is a lot of organization.
And so I would take my cell
project
phone.
Management
I would put my account number in my cell phone with my Visa prepaid card that somebody was holding for me out here.
Yeah.
And as long as that 16-digit number was good, it would tell me how much money it was for. So a guy would come and say, "Hey, Blake, I want a 50, mm-hmm. or I want 100, or I want 150. I would take that 16-digit number, hit pound at the end, and it would tell me, this is good for $150. And then he would get $150 worth of dope. I never touched the money. The money was transferred from whoever got him that card onto my card. It was being held on the street. Well, when the drugs were gone, it was time to re-up. So that person would take that card to the bank, get the cash, go to the drug dealer we sent them to out here, get the drugs, and then that person would drive those drugs to Montgomery, meet the police officer. He would watch the schedule, which guards, which lieutenants, which sergeants he could bring it in on. And then certain days he would come in and he would just give us a thumbs up, and we would know it's here, it's already in the prison. Mm-hmm. He's got it stashed somewhere, and we would get it. And then the whole cycle would, but I was intravenous. I was shooting up more than half of what I was scoring. Mm-hmm. I wasn't scoring drugs to get rich in prison. I was scoring drugs so I could do a lot, and then I would sell whatever was left to be able to do. Score
means to obtain. If we could translate the terms for everyone here.
For corporate America that is listening, Krista's friends, when we scored, we obtained the goods.
Received.
Okay. That's why when it would hit, we would walk around and do like an end zone dance, touchdown.
So are you kind of spilling the beans on the process now, or
No, because there's 33 institutions in the state of Alabama, probably over 10,000 guards. Hey, needle in a haystack.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what is so wild to think about is.
So that's how my drug abuse actually increased in prison. I became an intravenous drug user while in prison. While on the streets, all I ever did was snort and smoke drugs. Yeah. I actually started putting a needle in my arm in there because it's a lot harder to smoke drugs in prison or even snort cocaine in prison than it is to get a needle from diabetic pill call and just do it in your arm. It's a lot easier to hide a needle too than it is to, probably hide other smoking utensils.
The other thing that I always blew my mind to see, and I was able to see this, on Facebook because you had a cell phone. So how did you get a cell phone? Is that, do they let inmates have cell phones? I don't think so, but
same way.
So you would hide it. And then about the gangs, I just thought it was wild that you were, one, a part of a gang, but two, a Latin King member.
Yeah. So the cell phones, they come in the same way the drugs come in. We would get them, they were always little flip phones until we started getting some Androids. But they would come in the same way. big gallon Ziploc bags with about 19 cell phones in it, 20 cell phones. So that's how that happened. The gang stuff happened just from, I never wanted to be in a gang. I got in a lot of fights, and gangs would always want to recruit me after they saw I fought. You know, I would beat up a guy or, you know, punch 2 or 3 dudes and knock them out or whatever. And so they would come and recruit me, kind of, but they also kind of knew that I was kind of like a lone soldier. I had my friends, but, you know. So the Latin Kings, I became really close with some of those guys just because, even on this side of the Lord, I say this, but I don't say it like for the love of the organization, like the love of evil. But Hispanic gang members,
They're loving.
they're really loyal.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to mess with a bunch of Mexicans.
They're when I say loving, they're like,
or you don't want to mess with
family.
a bunch of Hondurans or a bunch of El Salvador or whatever, Puerto Ricans. They are just, I loved their loyalty, but I also really loved their ruthlessness too, because they were like what you see about any Mexican gang on National Geographic is the truth. Like, and I liked that. I like their savage side, but I also like when I looked out on the yard, you could see 20 or 30 of them eating together. Right. That family loyalty, which my family was torn apart from my drug addiction, so I kind of got drawn to that. Yeah. They weren't as renegade as other gangs were. They were very organized. And then so they approached me one morning over a joint. One of them came and got me and said, "Hey, walk with me." And I was like, "Where are we going?" He's like, "We're going to smoke this joint." And he was a good friend of mine. And so when we rounded the corner on the prison yard, there's a certain spot on the yard that the guards can't see, the guard towers, and there was numerous gang members standing out there. And I knew. And that's when they asked me, you know, "Do you want your crown?" And I was like, "Might as well, man. Let's do it," you know. So that's how that came about.
And then, like now, you know, from my limited knowledge of gang activities and rules and regulations, one of my questions to you was like, how does that work now? Because, you know, people can say what they want to say about like diminishing gangs, but you know, probably in this lifetime, they're not going anywhere. They're very organized.
They're family.
They are
to
family.
Kids who don't have families.
Yes, they have, you know, a lot of things from I always go back to project management and organization and structure and leadership, and like, although there's criminal activity that's related to it, there's, you know, so this isn't I do not condone gang, obviously, activity, but there is order then to, you know, certain people who choose not to be active any longer, and reasons why they're not active any longer. And like, you know, you hear the stereotypes of like, if you're in a gang, you're in it for forever and there's no getting out, or you get killed. I mean, just to that extreme. But where do you sit in that, you know, in the view of that gang currently?
Well, the truth is, most people, no matter what their religious base is, whether they're atheists or Christians or Muslims or whatever it is, whatever your spectrum of the world is that your belief system, nobody denies authentic anything. If it's real or authentic, nobody denies it. And my conversion was really authentic. I went literally within the span of like a week or two being one person. I was you know, somebody who was just a fly off the handle type guy, fighting, you know, just carried myself a certain way to, I go into the chapel where I got saved, and within like the weeks after that, I literally I'm different. I don't cuss anymore. I'm not smoking cigarettes. You know, and so my gang, the gang members there, the guys who knew me to be a Latin king, and even some of the other Latin kings, they saw such an authentic, like, this is real. Like, we know him. Like, you know. And so I remember one of them said, he was like, "Hey, homie, if you feel like God's speaking to you, and you feel like, you know, this is a time where you know, whatever, you need to go after the Lord, then we bless that. You know what I mean? You're not going to catch any flack from that." And to be honest with you, at that point, I had such a real encounter with the Lord that I didn't really care.
Yeah.
I was still kind of stupid.
Yeah.
You know, I was still, and I think that's one reason I know when God is kind of like Paul, like when Jesus called me, he knew this one right here is stubborn as a mule. He's not going to take his hand off the plow.
Yeah.
You know, and so it was just authentic. And I started inviting them to chapel. And, there was people, I'm sure, I even had friends when I got out that said, hey, I gave that whole religious thing 6 months.
Yeah.
I said, he'll be back in jail. But people can see authentic. I see it, you see it. When something's real, you can't deny it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you were blessed to
if I ever
to
wanted
not
to
be
become
active.
if I ever wanted to gangbang again, it wouldn't be nothing to just start. Call up the people, get in touch with some of my friends that are still in prison. Say, hey man, I'm, whatever's happened in life, I'm ready to gangbang. I know where a set of Latin Kings are, right now within 10 miles of us. So
Interesting.
it's always, somebody holding a pistol is always needed.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm glad that
a sack of drugs. I mean, they'll invite me right back in.
I'm glad that that's not on the agenda.
I do want to say, why does the youth go to that so much? Why, look at American culture. Marriages don't. I think 70% of marriages end in divorce. Mm-hmm. The fathers aren't really around. Most gang members, I'm talking guys who really gang bang, not some white kid from the north end of town who likes to wear red. Yeah. Because he's listening to Jack Harlow or whatever. Yeah. Not that guy. That guy needs to go home and eat dinner with his family and don't do that. But the kids who grew up in it, it's family to them. That was the big thing. There's no father. There's guys in the gangs that are older than them. They are father figures. It's a sense of belonging and purpose. Yeah. So that's why they do it.
And people want, and that's just like such a call, a cry to the believers and the Christians to recognize that, or the church or a church, that if we're not being that type of family, there's another type, and that's called a gang.
It goes back to authentic.
Yeah.
Kids especially, the youth, they come in the church, they see that stuff.
Yes.
They see it.
They want authentic.
If the preacher preaches, he talks one way behind the microphone, and then in the parking lot he's a totally different man. Yeah. They have been trained by. I was trained for years by the devil to peep out plastic. Mm-hmm. If it's not real, you peep it out. Mm-hmm. You have to. Your life depends on it. So the youth today, they come in the church, they have to see authentic. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I could keep going on and on with questions.
Maybe an episode 2 later.
So we probably need a part 2 to this. Okay. But I do. I have a whole lot more that I want to ask, and then go into the after Christ and like what that looked like for you, because that was still a lot of time even with a new mind.
Yeah. Well, maybe even in the comments, if the guys, if people if they have a question, hey, I want to know about this, just ask. Yeah. They know I'm saved now. That conversion happened, 2012. So, but anything's open.
All right. Well, stay tuned to part 2 of life.
What's prison like?
In prison world stays points. You need a point system. You'd have all the points, free stays coming up. All right. Thanks, guys.